the Linux Peter Conference of year 17. My name is Vasily Tolstoy. I'm a member of the programming committee of the conference. And here I am with Mr. Jan Altenberg. Jan.
Hi, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jan Altenberg. I'm working for Linutronix, which is a embedded Linux service provider located in the southern part of Germany. So basically we do everything around Linux with a clear focus on Linux for industrial devices. And one main thing we do is trying to get real-time capabilities to Linux. So we do a lot of mainline development in that area.
Great. I have a usual set of questions. Please survive it. First of all, what's your personal opinion? What interesting things had happened last year?
Well, there's actually happened a lot in the Linux area during the past few years. So for last year, well, it's really hard to tell. Well, from my personal perspective, for sure, all the efforts regarding real-time Linux we accomplished, getting things mainline. That's, for me personally, the most interesting part in that area. So we recently accomplished the CPU hot plug rework, getting that stuff mainline, which is actually quite cool because we could prove that we make Linux better also for all the other users which are taking care about real time. So we improve the quality of Linux. So all the mainline things are my personal highlight of the last year. And well, just focusing on Linux, I think one interesting part for me was seeing all the movements from Microsoft moving towards Linux, like getting a platinum member of the Linux Foundation, and we had a nice talk about Windows and Azure and Linux running on top of it. So this is some interesting movement I'm following these days, and that was also pretty interesting during last year.
Thank you. You were doing a talk at the conference.
Yeah.
Can you tell us in a few words, I know that's compression like 100 times, what it was about?
Well, it was for sure about real-time Linux. So this is kind of a special topic for me because I'm trying to get real-time into Linux since 15 years now. I'm embedded Linux engineer for quite a long time. So I gave a quick overview on what real-time is about, how you could get that into Linux, like telling about different approaches. There's different ways to make Linux real-time capable, and then I talked a bit about the things we already got into mainline Linux and the efforts to put the rest of the stuff mainline. And I was showing a couple of measurements which latencies you could achieve with real-time Linux on a given hardware platform. So that was basically what I was talking about.
Great. And what again is just a personal opinion? How you feel it? Is there any hype around? Something which is probably overestimated or just so great that it's really the thing that comes and everybody is fascinated with it?
There's definitely a hype around these days. It's all that container technology. I don't know if it's overestimated, but that's definitely one of the hypes we see nowadays, that people are moving stuff into containers, and we actually see quite a lot of container talks these days. We see a lot of different container technologies coming up, like Docker was promoted pretty hard these days, like even systemd got support for containers without having
Systemd has support for everything.
It has support for everything, so I'm really looking forward to that talk today. We've got a systemd talk today. So this is one of the hypes we see these days, definitely. All that container thing, and well, everything which is related to security-related stuff. It's pretty much, and that's quite important. So that's an important topic to focus on the security things.
You told, and I know that your company is doing the Linux, putting Linux to an industrial application. And what was so far the most interesting industrial application? The biggest one, the most non-trivial one?
Well, there's been many in that time, but
Choose one.
I think my favorite one are like the automotive applications we did so far, because like they do actually, they have normal requirements, but the boot time requirements these guys have are pretty hard. So one problem we had to solve for a couple of automotive customers is to boot Linux in less than 1 second. So we had one customer where we had to achieve like booting into a Linux application within 400 milliseconds. We actually achieved that goal, but that was quite some work. And it turned out it's possible with Linux, and Linux offers a lot of technology. So for me personally, that was like one of the most interesting projects we've done so far.
It definitely is. I could survive if my home Linux starts in 2, even 300 milliseconds, but 100. Okay, sad joke. Actually, it takes much more. Next question I'd like to ask, it's much more soft skill oriented, or probably like about people, not about the technology. What do you think? Does the Linux community needs to make some special effort to bring new people in? Or it grows by itself and you shouldn't care about that, it works nicely as it is?
Well, I don't think we have to put additional efforts on that. I think there's already enough effort to get new people in. We have a lot of programs to get newbies in. We still get that Köln Newbies project, like there's some janitory work you could sign up for, like simple cleanup in the Köln and stuff. So I think there's a lot of motivation for people to participate, and well, I think we're doing a lot, and that's quite enough what we do these days.
So you actually say that some special activity is necessary, but it's enough in amount what
well, we have some special activities that's especially forced by Linux Foundation to get new people and motivate people, but definitely these activities are mandatory. So we need new people because it's like the Linux ecosystem, it's huge, so there's many people working on that, and we need new people to get into to finalize the goals we have.
Sure. Next question would be, can you recommend some book or a website, the person, YouTube channel, whatever, some source of information which definitely everybody should immediately put its hand on and get some info from it?
Well, there's not that much books when it comes to kernel development, because the problem is it's so horribly fast that like it needs 1 or 2 years to get a book up to a point where it could get printed, and like during 2 years, like the whole kernel API would probably change. So, but there's a couple of good sources. I think the best one you could probably check out if you want to follow Linux mainline development is lwn.net, Linux Weekly News, which is like a online newspaper, not just following the kernel development, just focusing on Linux development. They do reviews on new distribution releases. They follow kernel development and trying to put it in some technical articles which are understandable for a normal person. So if you really want to participate in kernel development, this is a good source to read. So I would definitely recommend lwn.net. For a book, like if you want to get into low-level system programming, there's actually one I could recommend. It's called the Linux Programming Interface by Michael Karisk.
Yes.
So this is basically, he's the man-page maintainer. So he did a nice book, and I would recommend to have that book at home.
I have one.
Yeah, which is good.
I followed the time machine. I followed your recommendation before you made it.
That's good. That's good.
Let's imagine that all the younger people who want to take part in Linux development are thinking about it, are sitting behind this camera, and you can say something to them. What it would be?
Well, that's a tough question. What I would say is like, maybe they should be aware of the chances Linux is offering to them. I've been following Linux from the early days, and I also had to use commercial operating systems before, and I saw the advantages Linux gave me, like the freedom to modify the source code, to check out the source code. These younger people should see this as a big gift and see the benefits of this ecosystem, because no company on this world would be able to rebuild something like Linux is nowadays. And this is something we should be aware of, that there's so much effort in this operating system, and it ruled out all of the other operating systems these days. So that would be my message. Just maybe be thankful for for this big ecosystem, which is a big gift to the community.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.